Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we have my going second Dino list that I've been testing. I've been really excited to play this deck, but unfortunately we don't get the cards that I think make it really cool until post-Eternity Code, but we still have some really great options in the deck, especially since Lithosagym came unbanned. So I've been wanting to play this deck ever since that happened. I've been playing this deck from before then, and I was honestly shocked to see Lithosagym come back. I've had talks with friends about this deck in the past where we thought, oh, Denglong is more likely to come back before Lithosagym, because that card's just absolutely insane in what it can allow the dinosaur deck to do. But either way, let's jump right into it. Starting with the main deck, we have, of course, our bread and butter of the deck, 3 Soul Eating Oviraptor and 3 Miscellaneousaurus. Both of these cards are fantastic for dinosaurs, and honestly, I quit Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time, but when this card came back to 3 off the ban list, I messaged my local Yu-Gi-Oh! Group chat like, hey, be ready, I'm coming back in, boys. And then I came in and swept the next 2 locals in a row. But then I got used to playing against dinos, and I started not doing as well again. But it's neither here nor there. Continuing on with the list, we have 1 copy of Giant Rex to finish out the level 4 dinos in the deck. This card sucks to draw, but oh my gosh, the amount of value that it gives you post turn 1 is absolutely insane. Moving on to the big dinosaurs, play 3 copies of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. There's a lot of hands where if you just open this card, it's really cool, because like you get like Nibiru or something while you're going through your combo sequences. That sucks, but then you can just slap a UTC down after they've used up their stuff, or you know, if like you're baiting out all their negates with all of these other effects, right? And then you can just slap an Ultimate Conductor down and like clear their board. That's like fantastic, and a lot of people won't expect you to just hard draw it, and because of that, I'm playing 3 copies. And then to finish out our big dinosaur counts, 2 copies of Dogeron. This is really good against the spiral board. It basically takes away 2 of their negates, or I guess more than that, because the Appaloosa is really harmful against this deck. So you can tribute their Appaloosa, and then it turns off the Trigate and the Appaloosa, or if like they make a little bit more of a mediocre board, you can like tribute their Sleeper if that's what's going to affect you more than the actual Appaloosa is, which is really cool. This card is very format dependent. There's some formats I play 0 Kaijus, but this one in particular I think is really good for Kaijus. And then 1 copy of Pankratops, because it's at 1. I used to play this at 3 in my going second lists, but unfortunate. There's still a combo with it where you get to bring this out and add it as another piece of interruption, which is really cool, and I've showcased it before on the channel. And 1 copy of Overtex Quatless. My normal splits on this are like 2-2. But like I really been missing playing, like just being able to slap this card down. So I decided to up this to 3 copies, bump this down to 1. This is fine. There's a lot of times where you summon it off either its own effect to recycle all of your resources, or you summon it off Evolution Pill and then it pops itself and then it'll search another copy of it. Most of the time you most likely want to be using it for its resource cycling effect, because this deck does a very good job at like using like 2 of these and then a bunch of these in 1 turn, or in like 2 turns, setting it up for the next turn. And then if you can summon back an Oviraptor on a later turn, search this, you're gonna have enough fodder for it, because this deck typically banishes 4 first Miscellaneousaurus plays. And then that's it for the big dinosaurs. Continuing on, the package that makes this deck kind of nutty, we got 3 copies of Baby Sarasaurus, 2 copies of Petit Pterodon. You want to see these cards, they're really good. Sometimes you run out of Petit Pterodons, which is funny enough. If you open this card, things can be kind of rough. Like there's a lot of times where I just want to do the banish 2 play, but if I open the Petit Pterodon I can't, so we play 2 for that, and also 2 because it's an additional consistency card to go with our True Kings. Like if you open up these cards together, like it's absolutely insane. It's a little bit better to open Field Spell Baby, but opening Litho Baby is still just as good, because you're going to be generating a ton of advantage. And then this card is insane, because you just rip your opponent's extra deck apart. Ironically enough, you pull Link Revo out of their extra deck a lot, because we're playing Lost World in this list as well, and giving them the token and then having them be able to take that token and clear it immediately without having to actually do anything is really unfortunate for you. So it's really cool. Also takes away other combo pieces, other one-of combo pieces that your opponent might be playing, that they can't really afford to lose. Continuing on to the spells, we have our field spells. 3 copies of Lost World. This card is really cool, prevents your opponent from targeting your stuff. Basically auto wins you the Mystic Mine matchup, which is really cool. You just summon a dinosaur, they have a token now, you pass turn, and the Mystic Mine clears itself, right? It's like, like that's pretty cool. And then to go with that, we also have our 1 copy of Dragonic Diagram. This card really holds the whole deck together. Like This card is so powerful. It allows you to get off the ground. It allows to basically allows you to OTK your opponent basically for free, which is really cool. It demands a stop if your opponent has it, because if they don't, you're just gonna pop off. But you might already just have one of the True Kings in hand because we play 4 copies of them. And then to go with that, we have one last field spell, Mystic Mine. There's a lot of cases where, like, if you have a Mystic Mine, this force baits the sleeper, or other decks that put up big combo boards, you just play your Mystic Mine, and it basically outs the board because you can then go into, like, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and wipe their field for free. You end up, like, with 1/1, the Mystic Mine clears itself, or if, like, you're in a situation where you can't pop off, you can just activate Mystic Mine and just sit on it and wait for you to, like, draw into the cards that you need to see, because this card is still very difficult to out unless they just have the hard removal on the spot for it. And then continuing on to go with our field spells, we have 1 copy of Terraforming and 1 copy of Set Rotation. This card is also fantastic against the Mystic Mine matchup. Just setting a field spell to your opponent's side of the field and then never activating yours means that they can't activate their Mystic Mine over the top, which means that you're going to have a much easier time winning against that match. I keep saying that because I played in the locals last week where I played against one of my friends who was playing Mystic Mine that day, and I was like, oh man, Mystic Mine, I don't want to play against that. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wow, this is actually kind of a free matchup, because we're main decking, like, all these cards, we're main decking the Set Rotation, like, we just have a lot of ways to just clear and answer their Mystic Mine for free. So all the field spells, very powerful. Continuing on, best Dino consistency card. Only, it doesn't say once per turn. Search out anything you need. And then 2 copies of Evolution Pill. I like playing this at 2, mostly because you can Evolution Pill out your your Overtext Coatlas, and then when Coatlas blows itself up, you add another copy of Double Evolution Pill, which basically gives you a follow-up play for the next turn. And then the last 2 spells, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, just additional consistency card, and 1 copy of Upstart Goblin, because we want to be playing 40 card decks. Arguably, this is not that great in this current format, because there's a lot of decks that are main decking Droll, and having your Upstart being the card that gets Drolled at the beginning of your turn is really, really painful. But there wasn't a lot of other cards that I wanted to play over this slot, and I just, like, I'm relying on an inherently inconsistent combo. Like, I have to open a baby, plus, like, a diagram to really do stuff, or I have to open, like, Oviraptor, Lost World, right? Those are both, like, really good combos in this deck. And in order to do that, I need to see my cards. So because of that, I wanted to play the Upstart Goblin. And then the last 3 cards in the deck are just 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Now this card is a little bit expensive right now. You could alternatively play, like, Twin Twisters in the main deck. Most of the time I'm using this to clear back row before going in. I mean, really, there's no, like, real substitute for this card outside of, like, Lightning Storm, but Lightning Storm is so much more expensive than this anyways. This card's just really good for the format. You can also just play other cards that you want to play, like Twin Twisters or something. Those are also really good options. Really, you just need ways to clear your opponent's board before you start pushing them in and going for game. Moving on to the extra deck, we have our tokens for our Lost World. There's 4 might be excessive, but, you know, I like the way all of them look, so they're in here. And then for our XCs, play 1 Dolka, 1 Evolzar Logia, 1 Abyss Dweller, and 1 True King of all Calamities. You might be able to get away with playing more. There's some Link monsters in here that I wasn't the biggest fan of. Like, you might be able to fit an Excite-on Knight in, so, like, if you are to red reboot opponent, and then you can Excite on them in, like, main phase 2 to wipe all their back row. That's pretty cool. And then because you're Excite-on Knighting them and not Trisbania them, you're not losing a lot of monsters, and Trisbania basically requires 4 monsters, while Excite-on's only 2. Yeah, so all these could be bumped up. There's times when I wish I had another Logia. Sometimes more Dolka. I don't know. I've been playing against a lot of back row decks at locals, so Dolka's been a little bit lackluster. And then sometimes you get to make this. This card is really hard to make if you don't see... actually, it's impossible to make, essentially, if you don't open another level 9 in this current build. And because of that, like, I think that the new Gizmek card, Gizmek Kaku, would be a really good addition to this deck. I don't own any right now, and this is the deck that I've actually been testing, so In that, you might want to play more, or like two copies of True Kings of All Calamities if you're able to get the Kakus for this deck, because that card is really good. Really good going second. Like, you basically steal a Link monster, summons itself for free, and then baits a negate like an Appaloosa, or a sleeper has to pop it. Otherwise, like, you're going to be able to make the True King of All Calamities later, and then just pocket the True King for when they do sleeper pop, and then you just turn off their sleeper, which is really cool. But you still have to clear the Appaloosa, but this is a 3k body, which makes clearing Appaloosa relatively simple, especially if the Kaku is pulling your opponent's first negate off of it. Continuing on to our links, start with the link 2s. IP Masquerena. This card is fantastic, a little bit pricey, but there's a lot of boards where you just like throw 2 pieces of I hate to say garbage into it, and then you just have interruption on your opponent's turn. I wish I could afford the Appaloosa to put in here as well. Unfortunately, I can't, so we're playing a little bit of some weaker rank 4s, but this card's still really cool. Lambda, just as a generic link 2. Hida, because you have a lot of fires. You can also like take an opponent's fire monster to keep going, and it's also just the biggest generic link 2 that this deck can play. It's pretty easy to put fires onto the board for this card. And then 1 copy of Pentastag. This card's really cool in tandem with Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. You basically summon Pentastag or Ultimate Conductor Tyranno under Pentastag, and this can attack everything for piercing. So instead of sending your opponent's monsters to the graveyard, you pierce over them, and your Lost World is actually putting, that's the set rotation, your Lost World will put tokens on your opponent's side of the field for your Ultimate Conductor to be able to attack into. So that's really cool as well, because it basically means that you get to put cards onto their board that you're just going to clear for basically half of their life points. So this guy definitely deserves his spot in here. And then the last link 2s are just some nightmares. You know, just outing cards. I don't know how useful this is actually, because you can just clear monsters with your monsters. But sometimes you want to discard cards into the graveyard to get their effects. Like I said, the extra deck could use a little work. Like, this could probably be another rank 4 if you really wanted it to. Like, there's some other cards in here. Like, let's just jump into the link 3s. Nightmare Unicorn, probably absolutely necessary because of the IP play with it. It's like just really good. But like Decode Talker, this could just be another card entirely, like another link 3, or just like both of these could just be Xyz monsters instead, like Excite on Night, Tornado Dragon, Daigusto Emerald. Emerald's pretty cool too, because you can like put back your big dinosaurs, which can sometimes be a little bit hard to recycle. Like, you can put the Overtex Quatless back into your deck, so you can reuse it again later in the duel. It gives your deck a little bit more grind, but I was noticing that I really wasn't getting that far. So just having something that gets like really big and protects from targeting during the battles, during the damage, during the battle phase was pretty beneficial. And then our last 3 extra deck monsters are just link 4s that are kind of hard to deal with. Avermax, some decks really just struggle to deal with this because of its targeting protection and the fact that it removes something when it leaves the field. Borreload, just because it's Borreload. Like, again, this is just a random card, honestly. There's nothing in particular that this is super great against. I mean, I guess against Spiral, this is pretty cool because you can just take the sleeper if you've already outed the Appaloosa, and then you just have a sleeper on your turn. Or you have a sleeper that, like, you know, your opponent can't do anything against. And then you also have the Borreload Dragon. This card is just throw 4 monsters into the graveyard, win the game. So that's pretty cool. And then moving on to our side deck that I've been playing. 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird and 2 Nibiru for the sided hand traps. Droll and Lock is just so beneficial right now. Like, it's really hard to argue with the amount of impact that this specific card has against the Spiral matchup and against a ton of other matchups. Nibiru, this is mostly, I guess, for Salamangreat. Like, Salad has a hard time playing out of this once you get it, once you just Nibiru them. I've been not citing it as much for the Spiral matchups. I've been more citing Dark Ruler No More for that matchup. I've been noticing that, like, there's a lot of times when I Nibiru a Spiral player that they can just either continue going because they have enough gas to, or like I'm forced to Nibiru them at an awkward time where they still have gas because otherwise they're about to make an Appaloosa, which can be really frustrating because they haven't really fully committed to a play, and I'm just sitting there with a Nibiru that's not going to do anything. Whereas if it was a Dark Ruler No More, like, it blanks their entire field, it turns off like it turns off their utility wire as well, because their double helix is no longer considered a super agent on the field. So, like, that's really cool, and I think I've been liking citing this a little bit more against Spiral. But all of these cards are super beneficial. There's a ton of like spiral matchups. This is also really good against Dinosaur, ironically enough, because like after your first search, you're like, ah, yes, I searched with my diagram, and now I summoned Oviraptor, but I can't search with the Oviraptor, so I have to just dump to Graveyard instead, and then your game plan gets a lot more awkward from there. Or they just, you just draw their Upstart Goblin, and then they cry. And then the last going second side cards, we have 2 copies of Twin Twister to clear back row, and 2 copies of Anti-Magic Arrow. Or Anti-Magic Arrow and Red Reboot. I think I'd almost prefer this to be the second copy of Anti-Magic Arrow. Because Red Reboot is cool, but there's nothing quite like just turning off all of your opponent's back row spells included during the battle phase when you start pushing in for game. So that's really cool. Red Reboot is cool too, but Anti-Magic Arrows can't be responded to, so like they can Judgment this and then still use all their traps, whereas like this card they can't really do anything against. And then for going first, if you get forced to go first, I just side 3 cards. 2 Sanctum, 1 Scythe. Really, this should be 3 Sanctum. I just don't own the 3rd right now. If I had to find room for it, I would probably cut from the side deck. Like, maybe just the Red Reboot. Because, like, I don't know, it's good, but maybe not the Red Reboot. Probably a Twin Twister or a Dark Ruler no more. Just because, like, they're great, but like you don't really want to open multiples where like this, if you're going first, your hands can be pretty bricky, but Sanctum just hard bails you out of those matchups where your opponent has to use their extra deck, and it just stops them and then gives you 1 turn and then you kill them. So overall, that was my going second Dinosaur deck list. I hope you guys enjoyed. We're going to be featuring a couple more deck lists here on the channel coming up soon. I have an ABC list that I've been working on with all of those cards from Eternity Code, so when that deck list comes out, it will have some proxies in it because it's a deck list for later down the line, but I've been enjoying theory crafting that deck a lot, so I wanted to show it to you guys. But that being said, this has been Underclocked. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.